Hey everybody, Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics. This week's question's answered. The question is, why can't I just jump into one of your level 1 classes? This is a great question. This is a question I actually get asked quite a bit through email messages, people registering for classes. The way my classes are currently structured is they're broken down into 8-hour blocks. So you have defensive fundamentals level, which is defensive handgun fundamentals, defensive rifle fundamentals, duty handgun fundamentals, and patrol rifle fundamentals, citizen and then law enforcement side. They're set up that way for a reason. When I first started Sage, I was still working full-time law enforcement. So if I had the ability to teach a class, most likely it was going to be a one-day thing. So I did 8-hour blocks. You see a lot of other instructors, every class they have is a 2 or 3-day class versus just a one-day. I like the one-day format because it gives me the ability to teach just one class if that's all I have time for. Since I started doing Sage full-time, I'm starting to get away from that. I'm restructuring classes, but the premise is going to remain the same. The question is always going to come up, why can't I just jump into your level 1? Why do I have to take the fundamentals? Well, it's defensive. Let's use defensive handgun fundamentals as an example. Maybe I should have named it a little bit differently because people always key in on that fundamentals part. Some people fail to realize that fundamentals is really all it is. You can accelerate the degree to which fundamentals are applied to a situation, but at the end of the day, shooting is all about maximum effort, maximum efficiency on the fundamentals of the mechanical operation on the handgun, problem solving in real time. So there are no advanced skills. That's a debate. Of course, some people believe that there are advanced skills, and I believe that there's just an application of the fundamentals at a higher level of functioning. So again, that could be really semantic, and while I love being pedantic, I think semantics is one of those areas where we're constantly going to be wrapped around the axle. So defensive handgun fundamentals. What you need to be focused on is the defensive and the handgun, not so much the fundamentals part. If you've been to a Sage class, you know that I teach most likely to least likely. The reason I teach that way is because I want to give you what you need, what you're most likely to need as soon as possible. Of course, I can't predict the future, and no two gunfights are ever going to be the same. No two self-defense situations are ever going to be the same. But there are some consistencies that we've seen just through studying how profit crimes happen, how passion crimes happen, human nature, skilled versus unskilled opponents, amateurs versus professionals, so on and so forth. So that defensive handgun fundamentals class that you want to test out of or that you want to just skip because you feel like you've gotten that instruction elsewhere, 2 questions that I have to ask somebody is, without having gone through the class, do you actually think that you got what I'm teaching? Because if you're willing to come to me, then you feel like I can give you something as an instructor. So if you're willing to take class with me, are you just hunting that certificate? Or do you actually feel like, okay, I want to go train with Sage because I like the way he does things and I feel like I'm going to learn something? If your answer is the first answer and you're just after a certificate, you just want to check a box like, all right, I trained with this guy, I trained with that guy, there's the Sage box, moving on down. I got to be honest, I don't want you in my class. That's not me being arrogant, it's just me being like, maybe you need to rethink your application and rethink your mindset when it comes to why you're training. What's your impetus? What's your goal? If you're coming to me because you feel like I can give you a unique outlook, or you feel like maybe I can give you a little bit something extra that you didn't get from other people you've trained with, or maybe this is your first class, period. You can't just jump into a level 1 class because you're going to miss the way I structure my classes, the most likely. And the most likely is very important because the most likely critical skills. I try to cover every critical skill, every critical situation that I can, most likely, in that fundamentals level class. It should go without saying that your reputable instructors, we all teach a lot of the same stuff. We're going to cover a lot of the same content. The way that we apply it and what we focus on is what separates us. So, I get an email like, hey, I took, X's Pistol 101 or his entry-level class, whatever he calls his entry-level class. I just want to jump into your level 1. I gotta say that that's kind of like, let's use something benign as an example, like cooking lessons. You took your introduction to baking. So you got your baking, you got your introduction to baking. And then you're gonna jump right into an intermediate souffle class or an intermediate sauce class. Like, it doesn't quite compute. Like, granted, it's the same category. We're still talking about, like, say, handgun. Say you want to jump into my handgun intermediate because you took someone else's basic handgun. But the way I teach, you're missing that introductory level stuff. you're not missing the basics, because I expect students to come to me with already a basic understanding of how the gun works. If you already own the firearm, there's absolutely no excuse for not being able to operate it safely, because you own it. You can practice. You can teach yourself the very, very basic fundamental manipulation of the firearm itself. You should be really good at drawing the gun, for example, by the time you get to me. You shouldn't come to me for that. Because you own the gun, you own a holster, you probably have a home that you can do dry fire training in. So if you come to me and your draw's messed up, I gotta wonder, what were you doing before you got here? Never show up to a stage class like, hey, I just bought this is my first day. There's no real excuse for that. Like, I understand that some people feel like they need to get that inceptual level training from an instructor, and there are instructors out there that will give that to you. I can teach it, I just don't like to. And plus, there's so many people out there that are so passionate about inception level training that's their lane. Let them do it, let them handle it, and once you're ready for the introduction to defensive shooting, you can come to me. This is no attempt by me to be holier than thou. There are a lot of instructors out there that will not let you jump into intermediate or advanced level training, no matter how many years you were in the Army or how many years your father was in the Navy, or so on and so forth. Because experience you can't get experience through osmosis, so even putting that in an email is completely nonsensical to me, but some people do. And I think they feel like that just by being around that person who has experience, that they somehow gained experience just through vicarious experience, if you will. It doesn't work that way. Another reason why I very rarely let people jump into level 1 or never level 2 classes is I have a program that builds on itself, just like every other instructor I know does. Our fundamentals leads into our level 1, which leads into our level 2. So you're missing some of the classwork. It's like showing up halfway through the school year and being like, I don't even know what chapter I'm on. Again, a lot of the instruction is going to be the same, but it's ordered in different ways and there's different focuses. There are very few instructors that teach fully 3D like I do, and there's very few instructors that teach anatomy to the degree that I do. That doesn't mean you're not going to get a good instruction from other instructors. That means if you try to step into a level 1 class, you will have missed a lot of that, and you will be behind the performance curve when it comes to shooting. Because going from 2D to 3D creates some specific difficulties when we start dealing with shooting at what's inside the body versus little squares or targets or bullseyes on the outside of a two-dimensional object. So yes, I will let people step into a level 1 class. However, it's a case-by-case basis, and it's based on me having personal, intimate knowledge of whatever fundamental level training they've had from another instructor. I'm very, very picky for a reason, because I want to make sure that my students get the best training that they can possibly get. This is what I'm passionate about. I do this because I love it. Because if I just wanted a paycheck, there's lots of easier things to do that don't require the same degree of travel and being away from home and everything like that. I have a moral and ethical responsibility to make sure that I do my best for my students. So I would be remiss if I let someone jump into a level 1 without first making sure they understood the core concepts and principles that I wanted them to get in that fundamentals class that they're trying to skip. If you're a certificate hunter, again, please don't come to me. I'm not interested in people who are just out there to collect things to hang on their wall. I don't want you in my class, because I have history, my experience with people like that has shown me that they behave in a certain way in classes, and I'm not interested in it. You should be proud of your accomplishments. You should be proud of passing any class that you pass, but if you're coming specifically just to check a box, that's kind of the wrong mentality to go to a class. My personal feeling is I love learning, so I'm going to a class to learn. I could give a shit, honestly, if I get a certificate at the end of it or not, you know? I have no occupational requirement to prove that I attended this class. I don't need hours. It's not post, you know. So these days I don't even have to worry about that. I don't care. I just want to show up. I want to get trained. I want to learn some stuff, and I'm moving on. I encourage everybody to have that mentality. Now, those of you in law enforcement, if you have a box that you professionally have to check, then I get that. And you know, obviously I do my part to make sure that you're going to get the credit for that. But open your mind to the possibility that even if you've had that fundamental level training, that you're going to get something different, or you're going to get something underscored, or you're going to get some knowledge bombs from the SAGE fundamental level classes. A lot of people have been pleasantly surprised with the way that I teach at the fundamental level. It's not necessarily what they expect, and they usually walk away being like, okay, I get it. I get why there's a tiered system. I can't cover everything I want to cover in the beginning. It's just impossible. So that's why we have to have tiers of classes. So if you're looking at registering for a Sage Dynamics class and you think, well, I've had 2 or 3 classes, I did NRA Basic Pistol, or I trained with this guy, or what have you, and you're thinking about typing that email asking to jump into level 1, hopefully this video will change your mind, or at least make you rethink how you're going to try to convince me that you can step into a level 1 class. I'm Aaron Cowan with Sage Dynamics, training for you.